He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, 2002 to 2004. Do you remember those Saturday mornings when the heroes were all muscle-bound, the villains were super dramatic, and every episode wrapped up with a lesson to learn? If you were a kid in the 80s or 90s, you probably have some fond memories of He-Man from your childhood. While the original series is definitely the one that sticks in people's minds, the 2002 reboot of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe introduced some surprising elements like depth, lore, and really impressive animation. The 2002 series gives the franchise a fresh, modern twist. It's got more intense tones, true character development, and an arc that really boosts Skeletor's villain status. If you're someone who loves a good throwback, or if you're just diving into the world of Eternia for the first time, there's so much to discover and enjoy about this often overlooked gem. Also, if you like our content, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more of this cartoon awesomeness.
How long I've waited for this, Randor.
Season 1, 2002 to 2003, Episode 1, The Beginning Part 1. At the Hall of Wisdom, Captain Randor approaches the Council of Elders with urgent news. Keldor's forces are advancing on the capital and will soon breach the hall itself. Calm and resolute, the Elders assure Randor that Keldor will be defeated. They declare that the time has come for Captain Randor to rule Eternia as king, taking their place as its protector. Before more can be said, a violent explosion rocks the chamber. Smoke floods the hall, and through it, Keldor and his evil warriors emerge, launching an attack. Amid the chaos, Captain Randor notices the Council of Elders vanish in a flash of light. Keldor lunges toward him, and the two clash in a fierce duel. During the fight, Keldor hurls a glass tube at Randor. The captain raises his shield, deflecting the tube, but the corrosive liquid inside splashes back onto Keldor's face, burning it severely. Retreating in pain, the villains withdraw from the hall. Wasting no time, Captain Randor orders Duncan and the Masters to pursue the fleeing evil warriors. Left alone in the battered hall, Randor hears the voice of the sorceress. She tells him that the Masters will drive Keldor's forces into the Dark Hemisphere, and that, when evil inevitably rises again, a new hero will appear to defend Eternia. Years later, in the royal palace of Eternia, Prince Adam spars with Teela, testing his battle skills. Man-at-Arms watches critically, reminding Adam of the importance of discipline and the ever-present threat of evil. Elsewhere, across the Mystic Wall in Snake Mountain, Skeletor reveals a new weapon to his evil warriors, a seismic device capable of generating a powerful enough quake to shatter the wall. Though missing one crucial element, the Corridite crystal, Merman soon arrives bearing the needed piece. Back at the palace, a grand celebration is underway for Prince Adam's 16th birthday. But far from the festivities, Skeletor's device is activated, sending a massive concussive blast toward the Mystic Wall. The shockwave ripples across Eternia, felt even in the palace. One by one, Skeletor's minions launch attacks against the weakened barrier, and finally, Skeletor himself unleashes a powerful blast from his Havoc staff. The Mystic Wall crumbles. At that moment, the sorceress reaches out telepathically to Man-at-Arms, who immediately departs with Adam for Castle Grayskull. Meanwhile, Skeletor interrogates a man about the fate of the Hall of Wisdom and the Council of Elders. He refuses to believe that such power simply disappeared. Back at the palace, King Randor attempts to give a toast in honor of Adam, only to discover his son is missing. As he breaks off his speech in concern, Adam and Man-at-Arms arrive at Castle Grayskull. The drawbridge lowers, and they are welcomed inside. In the castle's throne room, the sorceress awaits. She explains the truth of what happened years ago, how Randor and the forces of good drove Keldor into the Dark Hemisphere, and how the Mystic Wall was erected to contain him. To safeguard Eternia's future, the Council of Elders transformed themselves into a magical crystal orb hidden deep within the castle. Adam, still skeptical, assumes the tale is an elaborate birthday prank and prepares to leave. But the sorceress insists that the Elders foretold the rise of a hero, and that hero is Adam himself, destined to become He-Man. Still unconvinced, Adam departs on a sky sled, heading back toward the royal palace. But as he approaches, Disbelief turns to horror as he sees that his home lies in shambles. Episode 2, The Beginning Part 2. After Keldor's ruthless assault on the castle, Adam rushes to find his mother. She is shaken but alive, and she informs Adam and Man-at-Arms that Keldor and his forces are behind the brutal attack. Meanwhile, King Randor and the defenders are locked in battle with Keldor elsewhere, trying to hold the line. Far from the castle, Stratos soars through the sky, engaging beastmen in a fierce aerial battle. On the ground, Tila is locked in combat with an enemy warrior. During the struggle, she loses her weapon, leaving her vulnerable. Just in time, Adam and Man-at-Arms arrive, providing her with a replacement. Rearmed and undeterred, Tila quickly regains the upper hand and defeats her opponent. High on a plateau, a tense duel unfolds between Randor and Keldor. Randor holds his own with his sword, but Keldor fights ferociously, wielding 2 blades and the dark power of his Havoc staff. The onslaught proves too much, and eventually, Keldor overwhelms the king. Then, in a chilling moment, Keldor reveals the terrible consequence of his dark pursuits. His face has been reduced to a fleshless skull. Shedding his old identity, he proclaims that Keldor is no more. He embraces a new name to match his horrifying appearance and strike fear into his enemies, Skeletor. Without hesitation, Skeletor seizes the weakened king and flies off, determined to extract secrets about the elders. Witnessing this, Adam retreats toward Castle Grayskull. Tila misinterprets his actions as cowardice and is quickly ambushed by Evil Lyn. As chaos erupts, defenders and enemies clash across the battlefield. Evil Lyn unleashes a devastating magical strike that incapacitates most of the defenders, leaving only Tila and Man-at-Arms standing. At Castle Grayskull, Adam follows the sorceress deep into the ancient halls. She entrusts him with the Power Sword, the key to the castle's magic. As he grasps the sword, Adam invokes the sacred words, transforming for the first time into He-Man, the champion of Grayskull. Empowered and reborn, he is warned by the sorceress to keep his true identity a secret. He also learns that he needs a companion worthy of the battles ahead. With a flash of magic, Cringer, Adam's timid feline companion, is transformed into the fierce and armoured battle cat. Orko, a mischievous but loyal Trollan magician, joins them. Back on the battlefield, the tide is turning in Skeletor's favour. Evil Lyn summons a deadly magmatite storm, and a Doomseeker traps Tila in the path of a falling shard. Just as it descends, He-Man charges into the fray.
Eternia will be mine!
Not if I can help it.
Episode 3, The Beginning Part 3. Amid a battlefield shrouded in chaos, He-Man makes a powerful entrance, crushing the Doomseeker with one hand and demolishing a massive magmatite with a single punch, saving Tila in the process. As the shock of his appearance settles, Evil Lyn retaliates by unleashing a relentless storm of falling magmatite. In response, He-Man rips a massive chunk of earth from the ground and hoists it above his head, shielding the group from the deadly barrage. The sheer force of his strength stuns the enemy forces, who, gripped by fear, urge Evil Lyn to halt the attack. She relents, and He-Man hurls the giant slab at the enemy ranks before turning back to the others. After briefly introducing himself, he informs them that he must leave to rescue King Randor. Just as the dust begins to settle, Merman erupts from the ground, riding a massive, green, fish-like beast. The creature lunges forward and swallows Man-at-Arms whole, before taking to the skies with Tila in hot pursuit. Inside the beast, Man-at-Arms clings desperately to the slick walls of its belly, trying to stay clear of the corrosive digestive fluids. Tila attacks the creature from the outside, but her efforts seem futile against its tough hide. Meanwhile, He-Man arrives at the edge of a cliff where Skeletor is preparing to cast King Randor into the abyss. The two lock eyes, sizing each other up before formally introducing themselves. As the tension explodes into combat, their respective mounts, Battle Cat and Panther, clash in a fierce skirmish of their own. He-Man and Skeletor engage in a brutal duel, evenly matched in both strength and fury. Eventually, realizing he is at a disadvantage, Skeletor chooses to retreat, leaving King Randor behind. Back at their stronghold, the heroes regroup and reflect on the appearance of He-Man, his power, his resolve, and the hope he brings. But far from defeated, Skeletor begins to lay plans of his own. In the shadows, he vows to eliminate He-Man once and for all, and finally seize control of Eternia. Episode 4: The Courage of Adam. At Snake Mountain, Skeletor broods over his latest scheme to defeat He-Man once and for all. As usual, his loyal yet skeptical minions gather around. Triclops raises a question, not about the plan's success, but about something more pressing. How do they even find He-Man? Skeletor, ever confident, reveals his method. They'll track him by his scent. Meanwhile, outside the walls of Snake Mountain, He-Man trains against a squad of Skeletor's minions. Orko, misreading the situation and thinking He-Man is in real danger, leaps in to help and manages to trip one of the enemies, only to be knocked aside by Triclops. The blow seems serious and Orko fears the worst until Man-at-Arms reassures him. The enemies are merely holographic robots designed to help He-Man sharpen his combat skills. Back in Skeletor's lair, Beastman returns with news. His hounds traced He-Man's scent not to the man himself, but to Prince Adam's armband. Skeletor scoffs at the idea that He-Man could be tracked so easily, but quickly devises a more sinister plan. Kidnap Prince Adam to lure He-Man into a trap. At King Randor's castle, Adam and Teela engage in a sparring session. During the session, Teela makes a jab about Adam's habit of disappearing during danger. Frustrated by her comments and the perception that he's a coward, Adam walks off, later confiding in Man-at-Arms about how the criticism weighs on him. Elsewhere in the castle, Stratos meets with King Randor, requesting permission to return to his homeland of Avion to help resolve a trade dispute with the people of Andrinos. The king grants his request, but insists that he takes someone with him for security. Adam volunteers, eager for a change of scenery and perhaps a chance to prove himself. The two soon depart. Unbeknownst to them, Skeletor has already caught wind of their journey. Merman brings him the news, and Skeletor quickly seizes the opportunity. He dispatches his forces to intercept Adam and Stratos at the only route to Avion, the Eye of Zarkine. As predicted, the ambush works. Stratos is taken out early, and Adam, though he fights valiantly, is overpowered. Both are captured and dragged off to Snake Mountain. At the castle, King Randor receives a grim package. Adam's sword, along with a letter from Skeletor demanding that He-Man come to Snake Mountain if he ever wants to see Adam again. With little time to waste, Man-at-Arms sends Orko and Cringer to Snake Mountain, hoping they can get the sword to Adam so he can transform into He-Man. Orko uses his magic to disguise Cringer as Skeletor's feline companion, Panther, giving him a chance to sneak in. But before Cringer can reach Adam's cell, he's spotted by a Doomseeker and chased off. Outside, Skeletor and his minions confront what appears to be He-Man. But when the figure is swiftly knocked out, it's revealed to be one of the same holographic robots He-Man had used in training. Skeletor, enraged by the deception, rushes to Adam's cell, only to find it empty. Teela, Man-at-Arms, and Ram-Man have already broken him out. In a final act of desperation, Skeletor unleashes his newest weapon, a massive tank that morphs into a towering skeletal creature. The monster easily knocks out the heroes, leaving only Adam and Cringer standing. With the sword finally in hand, Adam transforms into He-Man and lures the creature into a lava pit, destroying it. Skeletor flees once again. Back at the castle, Man-at-Arms reminds Adam that while his bravery is undeniable, the world will always need He-Man. Episode 5: Skywars. In his lair, Skeletor receives word of a secret meeting between Stratos and Buzzoff at the royal palace. Suspicious of their intentions, he instructs Beastman to send one of his gargoyles to spy on them. As they watch from the shadows, Skeletor muses about Ambrosia, the powerful sustenance of the Andronides, capable of greatly enhancing their strength. Strategically, King Randor proposes a strategic alliance between the Avion and Andronide, races to stand united against Skeletor. Buzzoff, however, refuses the offer. Confident in his people's ability to fend off any threat, he sees no need for outside support. After the meeting ends, Prince Adam departs, prompting Teela to express her frustration with what she sees as Adam's lackluster diplomacy and commitment. On their journey home, Buzzoff and the Andreanids are suddenly ambushed by a group of Avion warriors. Meanwhile, Stratos and his own team are attacked as well, this time by Andreanids. The unexpected assaults throw both sides into confusion, raising questions about who truly initiated the conflict. Meanwhile, Adam overhears news of the skirmishes. Sensing something deeper at play, he transforms into He-Man and, with Battle Cat by his side, sets out toward the Mystic Mountains to investigate. Along the way, they are joined by Teela. Unknown to the heroes, the attackers from both sides were not Avion or Andreanid at all. As they return to Snake Mountain, their forms flicker and shift, revealing them to be Beastman's shape-shifting gargoyles. Their mission, to sow discord, has already succeeded. One of the gargoyles reports spotting a warrior riding a green cat heading toward the mountains, a clear sign that He-Man is closing in. Later, as He-Man and Teela pilot Battlehawks toward the Mystic Mountains, they come under attack by Skeletor's evil warriors. Teela's fighter is shot down first, but she manages to leap aboard He-Man's craft. Not long after, he is brought down as well. On the ground, they find themselves entangled in a forest of aggressive vines, but manage to escape and defeat the attacking minions. Back at the palace, King Randor attempts to send messages to both the Avion and Andreanid leaders, hoping to prevent escalation. But Skeletor intercepts the communications. With Triclops' help, he alters the messages to appear as if each side is being warned about an attack from the other. The deception deepens the distrust, and Buzzoff, now wary, begins to prepare for war. Soon, both armies face each other in the skies over the Mystic Mountains. Tension crackles in the air, but neither side makes the first move, unwilling to provoke open conflict without certainty. Meanwhile, Skeletor, Evil Lyn, and Triclops strike a remote Andreanid outpost, defeating the last of the guards protecting the Ambrosia. Consuming it themselves, they are temporarily granted immense power. He-Man, Battle Cat, and Teela arrive to find the two armies on the verge of battle, only to be ambushed by the now enhanced villains. In the ensuing fight, He-Man faces Skeletor, Teela duels Evil Lyn, and Battle Cat clashes with Triclops. Though they are nearly overwhelmed, the effects of the Ambrosia soon wear off. Unlike the Andreanids, who gain lasting benefits, the substance proves toxic and unsustainable for others. Seizing the opportunity, He-Man commandeers Skeletor's pterodactyl and flies between the two armies. Revealing the deception, he exposes Skeletor's role in pitting the factions against one another. In the aftermath, back at the royal palace, Buzzoff and Stratos formally end their dispute. United once again, they pledge their allegiance to each other and King Randor, rallying their alliance against the greater threat. Episode 6, The Deep End. Like always, Orko, ever curious and excitable, was pondering the mysteries behind Man-at-Arm's complex inventions. Despite his fascination, Man-at-Arms firmly warns him not to touch anything, especially now when their search for a powerful energy source has grown increasingly urgent. Far from the safety of Eternia, at the sinister Snake Mountain, Evil Lyn approaches Skeletor with intriguing news. She has discovered the location of the legendary Corridite crystal. Recognizing its immense power, Skeletor commands his forces to retrieve it immediately. However, they soon learn that Merman already possesses the crystal. Enraged by this betrayal, Skeletor sends his troops to confront the aquatic warrior and seize the crystal for themselves. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Sea of Rakash, Man-at-Arms dons his specialized underwater armor and plunges beneath the waves in a daring attempt to recover the crystal before Skeletor's forces arrive. But Evil Lyn, empowered by her dark magic, casts a spell allowing Skeletor's minions to breathe underwater, evening the odds in the looming confrontation. A fierce battle erupts beneath the surface. Just as the fight intensifies, a colossal sea beast emerges, swallowing both Man-at-Arms and the crystal whole. The Corridite's unstable energy reacts violently within the creature, mutating it into a monstrous, even more formidable version of itself. Back on the shores, He-Man arrives and quickly realizes what must be done. As the defenders of Eternia engage the mutated beast in a desperate struggle, He-Man ventures inside the creature's belly to rescue Man-at-Arms. Time is running out, and the beast's power grows with each passing second. In a final, daring move, He-Man and Man-at-Arms escape through the creature's mouth, bringing the crystal with them. Realizing the danger it poses, He-Man hurls the crystal away and absorbs its raw energy himself. The surge temporarily encases him in stone, but he soon shatters the shell through sheer force of will. Back at Snake Mountain, Skeletor unleashes his wrath upon Merman for his failure. Frustrated and curious, he turns his attention to a far greater mystery, the secrets hidden within Castle Grayskull, and whether they are truly worth dying for. Episode 7. Lessons. The royal castle is undergoing some construction work, as is natural with Orko, who always wants to help. Even this time, he attempts to help rebuild the castle, only to accidentally make things worse. Frustrated and feeling useless, he decides to visit Castle Grayskull to ask the sorceress to send him back to his homeworld, Trolla. However, instead of granting his request, the sorceress takes an unexpected approach. Disguising herself as an old man, she sets out to help Orko realize how much he means to those around him and how much good he's done. Under the old man's guidance, Orko is taken on a reflective journey through his time on Eternia. He's reminded of how he once saved a young Prince Adam, a moment that would eventually shape the course of the planet's destiny. He sees how his humor brought joy to King Randor and Queen Marlena during one of their darkest times. Even though Orko often sees himself as a source of chaos, the old man shows him the impact his presence has made on those he cares about. Despite this, Orko still struggles to see his own worth. Meanwhile, Skeletor is in pursuit of the powerful Ramstone. To retrieve it, he sends Beastman, Trapjaw, and Evil Lyn to the ancient ruins of Zalesia, buried deep within the fiery sands. There, they face off against the Guardian of the Stone, the Faceless One. After a fierce battle, they manage to defeat him and steal the Ramstone, bringing it back to Castle Grayskull with the intent to breach its defenses. However, their plans are foiled by He-Man, with Orko by his side. In a surprising turn, it's Orko who plays a critical role in saving the day. The sorceress, still in disguise, watches with quiet pride as Orko rises to the occasion. Back at the ruins of Zalesia, the Faceless One returns to find the Ramstone has mysteriously been returned. A note lies beside it, and he realizes it was his daughter, Evil Lyn, who brought it back. Though her path has long diverged into darkness, this small act of redemption gives him hope that there may still be good within her. Episode 8. Siren Song. With Skeletor's forces growing bolder, Man-at-Arms intensified Prince Adam and Teela's training, hoping for better results. He sensed a larger threat looming. After a fierce battle where the heroes successfully repelled Skeletor's army, Man-at-Arms finally revealed the long-hidden truth about Castle Grayskull. United by a sense of duty, the heroes agreed to protect the ancient stronghold at all costs. Back at Snake Mountain, Skeletor seethed with frustration over yet another failed plan. Sensing an opportunity, Evil Lyn proposed a new tactic. She would use her magic to disguise herself as a beautiful siren and manipulate one of the masters from within. Her target, Ram-Man. Meanwhile, unaware of the looming danger, Ram-Man was quietly fishing at a small pond. The peaceful silence was broken by an enchanting melody. Entranced, he followed the sound, falling under Evil Lyn's spell. Hypnotized, he would remember none of what she told him, but her instructions were clear. Back at base, Man-at-Arms introduced the team to a powerful new defense mechanism, the Kinetic Immobilizer. Skeletor, learning of the device, saw a perfect opportunity to exploit Ram-Man's condition and instructed Evil Lyn to use him to steal it. On a stormy night, the Siren Song returned. Drawn by its call, Ram-Man sneaked into the workshop and retrieved the device, still under Evil Lyn's influence. By morning, panic set in. The device was missing, and no one could identify the culprit. Suspicion quickly fell on Buzz-Off, but Ram-Man's sudden defense of him made everyone uneasy. A confrontation erupted between the two, only for He-Man to step in and break it up. When Ram-Man once again wandered off, claiming to hear a song no one else could hear, Teela and Prince Adam decided to keep a close watch on him. Later that day, Ram-Man carried the device into the depths of Evergreen Forest, delivering it into Evil Lyn's waiting hands. Back at headquarters, the team confronted Ram-Man, but he insisted he had no memory of taking the device. Despite his pleas, the evidence was overwhelming, and he was placed in a holding cell. But Skeletor and Evil Lyn were not finished with him yet. Evil Lyn's song echoed once more, compelling Ram-Man to break free. The team gave chase, following him directly into one of Skeletor's traps. As the heroes clashed with Skeletor's forces, Man-at-Arms and Mechanic tried to engage the villain, only to be frozen by their own device. Skeletor turned the kinetic immobilizer on Man-E-Faces, Buzz-Off, and Teela, but the weapon failed to function on them. Man-at-Arms revealed it required an activation code to work fully, information that Skeletor did not have. Taking advantage of the confusion, Buzz-Off managed to reclaim the device, and a spectacular battle broke out. During the struggle, Man-at-Arms finally activated the kinetic immobilizer, halting Skeletor's army mid-attack. He then explained to the enemy that Ram-Man had been hypnotized, and the tables had turned. But before they could declare victory, Evil Lyn reappeared and seized the device. She nearly succeeded in hypnotizing He-Man, luring him toward a lava pit. At the last second, Ram-Man, breaking free of her control, rammed into a tree and caused it to crash down on her. The device fell into the lava, breaking her hold over everyone. With their plans foiled, Skeletor and his followers retreated once again. Back home, Ram-Man expressed deep gratitude for the team's trust and apologized to Buzz-Off. Though misled, he had proven his loyalty when it mattered most. Episode 9: The Ties That Bind. The battle for Castle Grayskull rages once again, driven by Skeletor's unyielding greed and thirst for ultimate power. Amidst the chaos, Teela is gravely wounded, her body broken in the fierce clash. Desperate to save her, Man-at-Arms rushes her to the sorceress, who, in a last-ditch effort, performs a blood transfusion to save her life. The procedure has unforeseen consequences. Teela, now infused with the sorceress's mystical energy, begins to experience a sudden and overwhelming telepathic connection to those around her. She can hear their thoughts, a constant stream of voices in her mind. When Man-at-Arms learns of Teela's new abilities, he is filled with concern. He knows the weight of the secret that Prince Adam carries, and worries that Teela might uncover the truth, that Adam is, in fact, He-Man. Fearing the danger of her newfound insight, he advises Adam to stay away from her for a while, unsure of how long Teela's powers will last. Teela struggles with her telepathic gift. While initially disoriented, she grows curious about the origins of her powers. Her mind, flooded with the voices of those around her, begins to churn with questions about her past, questions about her connection to the sorceress. Driven by a sense of something missing, Teela's thoughts turn to the woman who raised her. She begins to suspect that there may be a deeper, hidden truth about her identity. In an attempt to protect Teela from the painful truth, Man-at-Arms confronts the sorceress, urging her to finally reveal the truth about Teela's heritage, that she is her biological mother. Yet the sorceress, though conflicted, refuses. She insists that the time is not right for such a revelation, and that Teela must remain unaware of her true origins for now. Meanwhile, Evil Lyn senses Teela's telepathic abilities and seeks to exploit them for her own gain. She plants false thoughts in Teela's mind, manipulating her into believing they are messages of guidance. These deceptive messages lead Teela to the Sands of Time, where she expects to foil one of Skeletor's attacks. But the mission turns into a trap, and the Masters are ambushed by giant sandworms. It is only through the timely arrival of He-Man and Man-at-Arms that they manage to escape the creature's deadly grasp. In the aftermath of the battle, as Teela's powers begin to fade, she receives another telepathic message. This time, it is from the sorceress, urging her to return to Castle Grayskull. Though wary of another deception, Teela hesitates, but ultimately, trusting in the message, she leads the Masters back to Grayskull. There, they successfully defend the castle from Skeletor's forces. Once the battle is over, and as the final remnants of her telepathic powers slip away, Teela confronts the sorceress, demanding the answers she so desperately seeks about her past. But the sorceress remains silent, leaving Teela with more questions than ever before. In the quiet that follows, Man-at-Arms reflects on the difficult choices the sorceress has made, acknowledging the depth of her love for the daughter she can never fully claim. Episode 10, Dragon's Brood. Hoping to secure an alliance with Chief Carnivus, Prince Adam and Tila made their way to Felisquadi. As they passed a craggy ravine, a sudden guttural roar stopped them in their tracks. It came from a nearby cave, but the entrance was blocked by the remnants of a rock slide. They approached cautiously, only to find a massive clawed foot, one talon cracked and worn, sticking out from beneath the rubble. Whatever creature was inside had been trapped. Working together, Adam and Tila managed to clear just enough of the debris for the beast to wrench its foot free. With a final heave, it vanished into the shadows of the cave, leaving behind only the memory of its thunderous cry. Though curious, Adam and Tila refocused on their mission and continued toward Felisquadi. Elsewhere, in the dark halls of Snake Mountain, Beastman confided in Evil Lyn. The dragon they had just encountered was his doing. More specifically, a she-dragon, one from whom he had stolen a clutch of eggs. Unable to control adult dragons, he hoped to raise and tame the hatchlings instead, but his plan had already begun to fall apart. Somewhere along the way, the sack carrying the eggs had torn open. The eggs were lost. Far from Snake Mountain, Orko, while exploring near a riverbank, found the mysterious eggs and, seeing them as perfect for a juggling act, brought them to the royal palace. His performance soon took an unexpected turn when the eggs began to crack mid-show. 5 dragon hatchlings burst out, sending the audience into a panic. The creatures flew around the palace, spitting bursts of flame and chasing anything that shimmered. Man-at-Arms eventually drove them away, but he couldn't shake a growing worry. The dragons were aging at an unnatural speed. By the following day, those worries were realised. The hatchlings had grown to the size of horses and had been drawn back to the city by its gleaming ornaments and sparkling fixtures. Chaos spread as the heroic warriors struggled to contain them. In the midst of the confusion, Evil Lyn intervened, luring the dragons away with a levitating orb of glowing magic. Entranced, the creatures followed it all the way to Castle Greyskull. When the sphere vanished, the castle itself pulsed with the lingering magic. Returning from their successful mission, Adam and Tila received an urgent summons from the sorceress. Adam quickly convinced Tila to head for Castle Greyskull, while he pretended his sky sled had malfunctioned. Once alone, he transformed into He-Man and followed close behind. At Greyskull, the situation had worsened. The grown dragons were ferocious, and Tila and He-Man were quickly overwhelmed. Tila fell unconscious, and He-Man was pinned beneath a heavy claw. But then, the she-dragon arrived. Recognizing her by the cracked nail, He-Man stopped struggling, and she paused. Something in his scent struck a chord, and she withdrew. Instead of attacking, she gathered her brood and flew off into the sky. Tila regained consciousness just in time to see the dragoness retreat. Before they could regroup, Skeletor and his evil warriors emerged from hiding. Battle erupted, and this time, Beastman had brought with him a monstrous Serpentor, tipping the scales in Skeletor's favour. But the dragoness returned. Sensing the new threat, she struck down the Serpentor and stood beside He-Man, forcing Skeletor's retreat. Later, as the warriors gathered their strength, Tila eyed He-Man warily. Why? She asked. Had the dragoness spared him? When it was Adam who freed her, Adam hesitated. Before he could speak, Man-at-Arms intervened, gently suggesting that perhaps kindness is simply remembered. Episode 11, Turnabout. Skeletor, ever the schemer, had his sights set on the Diamond Ray of Disappearance, a powerful artifact with the ability to erase anything from existence. It was a tool capable of granting him unimaginable power. This plot is a subtle nod to the OG series. His plan, however, was quickly thwarted by He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, with He-Man, as always, destroying the diamond before Skeletor could claim its power. Yet, the villainous tyrant wasn't easily deterred. Inspired by a casual remark from Ram-Man, Man-at-Arms devised a cunning solution to end Skeletor's reign of terror once and for all. With the sorceress's aid, he crafted a magical belt that would force Skeletor to act with kindness. This belt was designed to punish Skeletor every time he entertained the thought of committing evil. The power of the belt was absolute. One wrong move, and it would deliver a shock so painful that even Skeletor's iron will would falter. With careful planning, He-Man and Tila managed to trick Skeletor into wearing the belt. The transformation was immediate. Skeletor, who thrived on malice and destruction, was forced into a position where he had to act benevolently in order to avoid the excruciating shocks. To counter this, Triclops, ever the tactical genius, crafted a device of his own, a harness that would punish He-Man's goodness. With this new weapon, the evil warriors set a trap to lure He-Man into action. Their plan unfolded with an attack on Felisquadi, a village that stood in the way of their ultimate goal. He-Man, ever the protector, responded without hesitation, but the harness they had set for him proved to be more than just a physical hindrance. It was a psychological weapon that slowly began to wear down He-Man's resolve. The harness shocked him whenever he acted in accordance with his principles of goodness, trying to force him into a state of weakness. Despite the pain, He-Man's strength proved to be too much. With a single burst of might, he overcame the harness and caused a chain reaction that exploded in a blinding flash, scattering the evil warriors and shattering the magical belt once and for all. Skeletor's plan, like so many before it, had been undone. In the aftermath of the battle, Skeletor found himself in a precarious situation, hanging from the edge of a cliff. His usual arrogance and defiance had been replaced with desperation as he pleaded for He-Man's help. For a moment, He-Man hesitated, reflecting on the chaos and destruction Skeletor had caused. However, his unwavering commitment to the principles of goodness led him to act. He reached down, offering Skeletor a chance at redemption, and pulled him to safety. Once free from the cliff, Skeletor wasted no time in attacking, but He-Man, ever steadfast, fought back. Skeletor escaped, though he did so with a parting shot, his evil monologue ringing in the air, a reminder of his relentless pursuit of power. Back at the palace, Adam found himself troubled by his decision to help Skeletor, wondering if he had made the right choice. He questioned whether his commitment to doing good had truly been worth it, given the pain and suffering Skeletor's actions had caused. Man-at-Arms, however, reassured him, reminding him that, in the end, Adam had no other choice. His nature was defined by his moral compass, and he had stayed true to it. Episode 12. Mechanek's Lament. Close to the formidable Castle Grayskull, a fierce battle unfolds between the Masters of the Universe and Skeletor's malevolent warriors. Amidst the chaos, Mechanek clashes with the cunning Triclops and suffers a neck injury. As the fight grows more intense, Man-at-Arms gives the order to retreat. The Masters fall back, leaving the evil warriors in control of the bridge leading to Castle Grayskull. Mechanek is instructed to stay behind and act as reconnaissance. Drawing on their combined strength, the remaining Masters manage to destroy the bridge, preventing further advancement. Back at the royal palace, Prince Adam notices Mechanek withdrawn and downcast. It becomes clear that the recent battle has shaken his confidence. Mechanek expresses deep doubts about the value of his powers, feeling inadequate compared to the others. Adam gently reminds him of a time when his unique ability helped locate both He-Man and King Randor when they were trapped in the Abyss, an act that had saved lives. The memory gives Mechanek a momentary sense of worth. Encouraged, he visits Man-at-Arms to have his damaged neck repaired. Later, Adam crosses paths with Mechanek as he leaves the lab, but the earlier boost in morale has faded. Sensing something amiss, Adam questions Man-at-Arms, who unveils his latest invention, a reconnaissance device that could replace the need for Mechanek's skills. Realizing this is the likely cause of Mechanek's renewed sorrow, Adam grows concerned. Meanwhile, Mechanek finds solace by a quiet lake, skipping stones as thoughts of self-doubt swirl in his mind. There, he notices an old man approaching on a small raft. Helping the man ashore, Mechanek confides in him about his insecurities and longing for stronger powers. The old man listens, then offers Mechanek the chance to change his fate. He tells him that his wish can be granted, but only if he retrieves a powerful amulet hidden in the treacherous sands of fire. Without hesitation, Mechanek agrees and sets off on his quest. Far away at Castle Grayskull, the sorceress senses a greater threat stirring. She informs Adam that Count Marzo, a dark sorcerer long thought exiled, has returned. Years ago, Captain Miro, King Randor's father, led the defense of Eternia and defeated Marzo. The Count's magical amulet, the source of his power, was cast into the unreachable depths of the sands of fire. Now, with signs of his resurgence, the sorceress fears the worst. In the scorching wastelands, Mechanek braves harsh elements, and deadly obstacles to find the amulet. In the end, it is his neck-stretching ability, once dismissed as trivial, that proves crucial in retrieving the artifact. Triumphant, he returns to the lake and hands the amulet to the old man, but the man turns away silently, walking across the lake's surface before vanishing in a burst of light. In truth, the old man was Count Marzo in disguise, and now, armed with his amulet once more, he set his sights on revenge, beginning with the royal palace. Alerted by the sorceress, Adam transforms into He-Man and sets out to confront the sorcerer in the Evergreen Forest. But Count Marzo, now restored to full strength and accompanied by his savage hounds, easily overwhelms He-Man and continues his rampage through the palace. The Masters attempt to stop him, but his magic and beasts prove too powerful. As he nears the throne room, the hounds unleash clouds of enchanted smoke, putting all who remain into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, Mechanic arrives at the palace, where Orko informs him of the unfolding attack. Acting swiftly, Orko rouses He-Man, while Mechanic races into battle. Using his agility and neck-stretching powers, he avoids the smoke clouds and intercepts Count Marzo before he can reach the throne. Recognizing his adversary, Marzo attacks, but He-Man soon joins the fray. The battle reaches a critical point when Mechanic manages to snatch the amulet and pass it to He-Man. With great force, He-Man hurls it into the distant seas of Eternia. Mechanic then subdues Count Marzo, while He-Man uses the Sword of Power to create a tornado, dispersing the lingering smoke clouds. As peace returns, He-Man praises Mechanic's unique talents. In that moment, Mechanic finally embraces his worth, realizing that what he once saw as a weakness had become his greatest strength. Episode 13. Night of the Shadow Beasts. In an effort to prove his worth to Skeletor, Beastman presents a terrifying force, a horde of shadow beasts. These formidable creatures, towering and nocturnal, are drawn to the darkness and possess immense strength. However, their one vulnerability is light, which they fear. They can only move through absolute darkness, making them a unique and potent weapon for Skeletor's plans. Seeing their potential, Skeletor devises a cunning strategy to exploit their weaknesses. To create the perfect environment for the shadow beasts to thrive, he orders his minions to block the vents of a massive volcano located in the Dark Hemisphere. The blocked vents cause the volcano to erupt continuously, sending a dense cloud of smoke and ash into the sky. The resulting perpetual darkness is the ideal cover for the shadow beasts, who can now move freely and attack without the hindrance of daylight. With the stage set, Skeletor launches a direct assault on Grayskull, hoping to uncover its ancient secrets and gain dominion over Eternia. Under the cover of darkness, the Shadow Beasts initiate simultaneous attacks on both the Royal Palace and Castle Grayskull. The Masters of the Universe, ever vigilant, must split their efforts to defend both locations. While He-Man heads to Castle Grayskull to protect it from Skeletor's forces, the rest of the Masters defend the Royal Palace from the onslaught of shadow beasts and evil warriors. In the chaos, Ram-Man faces an intense personal challenge. Trapped deep underground with a wounded Teela, he must confront his own deep-seated fear of the dark. Despite his terror, Ram-Man finds the strength to protect Teela from the advancing shadow beasts. His courage proves to be a turning point, allowing them both to survive the attack. Meanwhile, Skeletor continues his assault on Castle Grayskull, seeking to breach its ancient walls. He-Man arrives just in time though, determined to prevent Skeletor from gaining access to the castle's secrets. Despite an initial setback where he falls into the castle's perilous abyss, He-Man's resolve doesn't waver. He battles the shadow beasts and Skeletor's forces relentlessly, pushing back the dark creatures one by one. In the midst of the battle, the sorceress of Castle Grayskull unleashes a powerful burst of light, filling the castle with a blinding radiance. The light drives the shadow beasts back, momentarily overwhelming their senses and forcing them to retreat into the shadows. Meanwhile, outside the castle, He-Man turns his attention to the volcanic eruption that has plunged Eternia into darkness. Using his strength and ingenuity, he carves a channel through the volcanic rock, allowing the trapped lava to flow freely. This action dissipates the ash cloud, gradually allowing sunlight to filter back into the world. lifting the perpetual darkness that had gripped the planet. Back at Snake Mountain, Skeletor, enraged by the failure of his minions to destroy the royal palace, punishes them by locking them in a room with the very shadow beasts they had unleashed. The creature's insatiable hunger for darkness now becomes a reminder of Skeletor's wrath for their failure. Episode 14, Underworld. Prince Adam's royal training was proving to be more tedious than he'd hoped, especially the dining etiquette. Despite countless lessons, he still couldn't tell one fork from another. Annoyed and bored, he began cracking jokes with Orko, who had been keeping him company. Adam quipped that using the wrong utensil might spark a war, not realizing his father, King Randor, was within earshot. The king, unimpressed with his son's behavior, reminded Adam of the responsibilities that came with his royal lineage. Whether he liked it or not, Adam would one day be king, and it was time he started taking that role seriously. Chastened, Adam reluctantly promised to do better. Soon after, King Randor informed Adam that he would accompany him and Man-at-Arms on a diplomatic visit to Subternia, an underground realm shrouded in mystery. Elsewhere, Skeletor was plotting his next move. Determined to conquer Castle Grayskull once again, he realized he needed a new approach. His minion, Whiplash, proposed an unexpected route through Subternia. Though Evil Lyn warned against the realm's chaotic nature, Whiplash assured them he knew its terrain well, having grown up there. Intrigued, Skeletor approved the plan. As King Randor, Man-at-Arms, and Adam arrived at Subternia's entrance, they were welcomed by its ruler, the bat-like Lord Dactyrs. He guided them through his subterranean domain, but their visit was cut short when word reached them that Skeletor had entered Subternia with plans to breach Grayskull from below. King Randor acted swiftly, determined to stop him. While navigating the tunnels, the group encountered another faction, Serratus and his people. Initially mistaking Randor and his party for enemies, Serratus launched an attack. However, after a tense skirmish, the misunderstanding was cleared up and the two groups made peace. With safe passage granted, Randor and his companions pressed on and soon confronted Skeletor and his forces. In the chaos of battle, Adam became separated from the others. Seizing the opportunity, he transformed into He-Man. Meanwhile, King Randor and Man-at-Arms continued their pursuit, finding Skeletor dangerously close to reaching the foundation of Castle Grayskull. Just as things looked dire, He-Man emerged, turning the tide with his strength and presence. A fierce confrontation followed, during which Randor engaged Skeletor directly. With support from He-Man, they managed to push Skeletor back. Defeated but not destroyed, Skeletor and his minions attempted to retreat. However, their escape was short-lived. As they made their way back through Subternia, Serratus and his warriors intercepted them, finishing what remained of the battle. With Skeletor's plan foiled, peace was momentarily restored, and the alliance between surface and subterranean realms quietly strengthened. Episode 15, The Mystery of Anat Gar. The sorceress, with worry etched across her face, shares a troubling vision with Prince Adam and Man-at-Arms. She has seen Skeletor rising from the depths of the Ocean of Narl, more powerful than ever, and setting his sights on Eternia. What troubles her most is the possibility that he is after the Legacy Stones, ancient artifacts of immense power said to be hidden on the mysterious island of Anat Gar. Recognizing the urgency, Adam calls upon the power of Grayskull and transforms into He-Man. Alongside Man-at-Arms, he sets out for the island. The journey across the sea is rough. A massive wave crashes against them, nearly sweeping Man-at-Arms from his vehicle. He-Man acts quickly, pulling his companion to safety and steadying their course. As they reach Anat Gar, they're unaware that a lone figure watches their arrival from a distance, hidden in the mist. The island is ancient and eerie, steeped in silence and secrets. While searching for the stones, they discover a long stone hall lined with towering statues, stone soldiers standing in formation, each clutching a massive shield. The air is heavy with the sense of a trap. As they move forward, He-Man unknowingly steps on a pressure-sensitive tile. Instantly, the stone soldiers spring to life, slamming their shields inward to crush anything caught between them. The two heroes narrowly dodge the trap, escaping with only moments to spare. Deeper within the ruins, they come across a structure resembling a Japanese temple, ornate, symmetrical, and strangely preserved. But their arrival triggers yet another defense. More statues animate and lunge at them. He-Man hurls his sword into one of the attackers and follows up with a powerful kick, shattering its chest. Man-at-Arms uses his blaster to reduce another to rubble, their teamwork as sharp as ever. Suddenly, the presence watching them reveals himself. A figure descends from the sky, spinning within a tornado of his own making. He lands before them with purpose and control, introducing himself as Cyclone, guardian of the Legacy Stones. Despite He-Man's attempts to explain their mission and warn him about Skeletor, Cyclone remains unconvinced and goes on the offensive. He launches spinning discs with deadly accuracy, forcing He-Man into a defensive stance. When that fails, Cyclone generates small cyclones with his hands, but He-Man counters with a decisive punch. Still undeterred, Cyclone spins his upper body, summoning another whirlwind, only to be stopped once more. Before the conflict can continue, Skeletor and Beastman arrive, revealing that they've already taken the Legacy Stones. With a cruel grin, Skeletor dons the invincible Legacy armor, its dark power radiating from him. Episode 16, The Monster Within. He-Man and his allies found themselves in the midst of another fierce clash against the evil warriors. During the battle, Beastman employed a cunning tactic, targeting Man-E faces, whose unique ability to shift between human, robot, and beast forms made him both a valuable ally and a potential liability. Seizing the opportunity, Beastman attempted to manipulate Man-E face's beast persona and, to the shock of everyone, succeeded. Although the tide briefly turned in favour of the evil warriors, He-Man's arrival changed everything. With his unwavering strength and leadership, he turned the battle around and forced the evil warriors into retreat. However, the incident left a lasting impact on Man-E faces. Disturbed by how easily he had lost control, he began to question his own reliability. When the next mission was assigned, he was noticeably excluded. A decision not meant as punishment, but one that stung nonetheless. He-Man, understanding the weight of his comrade's internal struggle, offered to accompany him on a scouting mission to the Tar Swamp, hoping to help him rebuild his confidence. Meanwhile, Skeletor's frustration reached new heights. No matter how many plans he devised, He-Man continued to stand between him and his goal of seizing Castle Grayskull. Seeking a new advantage, Skeletor turned to two ruthless bounty hunters, Badra and Tuvar. Fierce and skilled, the duo promised to do what the evil warriors had failed to accomplish. But their arrival sparked tension within Skeletor's ranks. The other warriors, jealous and wary, decided that once He-Man was defeated, they would swoop in and claim credit for the victory. In the murky lands of Tar Swamp, He-Man and Man-E faces encountered the bounty hunters. The battle was intense, pushing both of them to their limits. Badra and Tuvar fought with coordinated brutality, but He-Man's strategy and Man-E faces' renewed determination eventually won out. However, before they could regroup, a second wave of enemies appeared. The evil warriors themselves, ready to steal the bounty hunters' glory. Once again, Beastman tried to seize control of Man-E face's beast form, but this time, things were different. He-Man reminded his friend that his strength lay not in how many faces he wore, but in his ability to remain true to himself. With clarity and resolve, Man-E faces resisted the manipulation. Instead of turning on his ally, he struck back against their enemies, proving beyond doubt that his mind, and each of his faces, belonged to him alone. Together, the duo overpowered the ambush and emerged victorious. Back at Snake Mountain, the defeated evil warriors shifted the blame to Badra and Tuvar, painting them as the cause of the mission's failure. Skeletor, in his wrath, enacted a cruel punishment. He magically bound the two bounty hunters together, condemning them to a life of shared failure and endless bickering. For them, it was the worst fate imaginable, and for Man-E faces, it was the first step toward reclaiming his place as a warrior in control of his destiny. Episode 17, Robbotos' Gambit. A chess match was underway between Robboto and Man-E faces. As expected, Robboto's advanced computing abilities gave him a significant edge, allowing him to dominate the game with calm precision. Meanwhile, at Castle Grayskull, Skeletor was being introduced to a new invention by Triclops, an army of skeletal warriors. According to Triclops, these warriors had a unique and terrifying trait. Whenever they were struck down, they would multiply. While Triclops was clearly proud of his creation, Skeletor remained skeptical of its practical use. Frustrated by Skeletor's lack of enthusiasm, Triclops decided to prove the worth of his invention on the battlefield. Not far from the royal palace, Teela and Prince Adam were sparring with swords. Adam narrowly won the match, which visibly annoyed Teela. She attributed her loss to a lack of upper body strength. Just then, Cyclone arrived and offered an alternative perspective, suggesting that flexibility could be just as vital as strength. Teela, however, dismissed the comment, brushing him off with irritation. Their attention quickly shifted when two skeletal warriors appeared from the nearby woods. Thinking them an easy target, Teela and Adam swiftly struck them down, but to their astonishment, the skeletons reanimated and multiplied. What began as a simple skirmish rapidly escalated. Teela dashed back to the palace to rally reinforcements, while Cyclone and Prince Adam, now transformed into He-Man, tried to contain the ever-growing threat. Back at the palace, Robboto expressed his desire to assist. Teela, however, dismissed him. Viewing him as nothing more than a chess-playing machine, Robboto argued that both play and battle required strategy and that his talents could be of use. Still, Teela refused to let him join the fight. Determined to contribute, Robboto retreated to his workshop and quickly constructed a combat-ready suit for himself. Reinvented and resolute, he returned to Teela to offer his help once more, but she remained unconvinced. Unwilling to stand by while others fought, Robboto decided to take matters into his own hands and headed to the battlefield. There, He-Man and Cyclone were struggling to keep the multiplying skeletal warriors under control. From a vantage point nearby, Triclops was watching with satisfaction as he remotely directed the chaos. Robboto, surveying the battlefield, quickly deduced the source of the control and alerted He-Man. He-Man wasted no time. Engaging Triclops, he managed to gain the upper hand in the scuffle and wrested the remote control device from him. With one powerful strike, he smashed it to pieces. Instantly, the skeletal warriors collapsed and disintegrated into piles of bones. Their unnatural animation halted. Just as He-Man was about to capture Triclops, Skeletor swooped in, grabbing his wayward inventor and vanishing into the shadows. Though Triclops had failed, Skeletor had his own plans and punishments for disobedience. Episode 18, Trust. When Merman is rescued out of the Eternian prison by Triclops, the Masters realize the current prison walls are no longer strong enough to contain their enemies. Stratos brings up Eternium, a rare and nearly indestructible substance believed to be the strongest on Eternia. He offers to search for it in the harsh and remote ice mountains, where legends suggest it may be found. To aid in the search, Man-at-Arms equips him with a handheld scanner capable of detecting unusual metals. Unbeknownst to the Masters, Triclops' Doomseekers have been monitoring their conversations. Skeletor, learning of the Eternium, becomes determined to obtain it for himself. He sends Trapjaw to track down the rare metal, promising that the other evil warriors will follow once Eternium is found. Though reluctant to go alone, Trapjaw is intrigued by the idea that Eternium might make him invincible. Stratos, braving the severe conditions of the ice mountains, manages to pick up a signal from the scanner and locate a deposit of Eternium. But just as he closes in, he is ambushed by Trapjaw. The two engage in a brutal fight amidst the howling winds and icy cliffs. The struggle sends both of them tumbling into a network of underground ice caves. Injured in the fall, Stratos suffers a broken wing while Trapjaw's leg is badly damaged. Despite their injuries, the battle continues until Stratos manages to gain the upper hand, disarming Trapjaw and taking his weapon. Back at the palace, the Masters grow increasingly concerned after losing contact with Stratos, especially as a worsening storm begins to sweep across the mountains. Sensing the urgency, Prince Adam transforms into He-Man and sets out for the ice mountains to find his missing friend. Meanwhile, deep within the ice caves, Stratos and Trapjaw find themselves forced into an uneasy alliance. Strange sounds and movements echo through the caverns, suggesting that something else is down there, something dangerous. As they attempt to find an escape, they spot a hole high in the cavern ceiling. Trapjaw uses his mechanical grapple to begin the climb. Just as they start making progress, Their mysterious pursuers burst through the snow and ice. In a sudden betrayal, Trapjaw headbutted Stratos, sending him plummeting to the cave floor, unconscious. From the shadows, the creatures finally reveal themselves. The Kulatax, an underground-dwelling species native to the Ice Mountains. They surround Stratos and take him back to their hidden village. At the same time, Battlecat begins searching the area for his lost companion. Eventually, he finds signs of life under the snow and digs through, freeing He-Man, who bursts to the surface. Together, they continue their search. Stratos awakens in the Kulatac village, disoriented and still injured. Their leader accuses him of trying to steal the Eternium. Stratos pleads his case, explaining that he didn't know the Kulatacs existed and that the Masters had no intention of taking anything by force. He asks for their trust, promising that the Masters would honor their rights. Trapjaw arrives shortly after, attempting to turn the Kulatacs against Stratos by painting himself as the more trustworthy of the two. Suspicious of both, the Kulatac leader decides to imprison them temporarily while he considers whom to believe. Locked away in a storage room, the two find themselves alone with a crate of Eternium. Trapjaw immediately tries to consume the metal in a bid for power. Stratos tries to stop him, struggling even in his weakened state. But it's all a test. The Kulatac leader had set a trap to see who was truly honorable. Stratos' selflessness convinces him of the truth. Just then, Skeletor arrives with his evil warriors to take the Eternium by force. He threatens the Kulatac leader, but Stratos throws himself in the way, shielding him and taking the brunt of the attack. At that moment, He-Man crashes through the ceiling and joins the fight. Together, they drive Skeletor and his minions away. In the wake of the day's events, He-Man helps the Kulatacs secure their village and protect the Eternium. Grateful, Stratos thanks the Kulatacs for their wisdom, having learned that trust must be earned through actions, not just words. Episode 19, Orko's Garden. Another bustling day dawned for the Masters of the Universe, with duties quickly assigned by the ever-diligent Man-at-Arms. Everyone received a task, everyone except Orko. The oversight stung, and despite his attempts to mask the disappointment, it didn't go unnoticed. Feeling a twinge of guilt, Man-at-Arms quickly found a role for the little Trollan, tending to the royal gardens, which had grown wild and unkempt. Eager to prove himself, Orko accepted the assignment with enthusiasm, but his well-meaning intentions quickly turned disastrous. A miscast spell, meant to help the plants grow, unleashed a surge of... Orko stared at the rising chaos in horror, unsure how to fix what he'd done. Just then, Ram-Man stumbled into the scene and took one look at the watery mess. Without judgment, he offered a helpful suggestion. Seek out Mossman, the guardian of nature. Taking the advice to heart, Orko rushed off in search of him, but instead of finding Mossman, Orko encountered a mysterious figure cloaked in shadows. The stranger claimed to be the very person Orko was looking for. Naive and desperate to make amends, Orko believed him. The imposter handed him a handful of strange seeds, assuring him they would restore the garden. Trusting the stranger, Orko hurried back and planted them. Almost instantly, thick, fibrous vines erupted from the soil, twisting and surging across the palace grounds. Before anyone could react, the stems snaked through the corridors, capturing Man-at-Arms, Teela, King Randor, the Queen, and even Prince Adam. The stranger revealed himself to be Evil Seed, a long-lurking enemy bent on revenge against the royal family. The garden had become his weapon. Orko finally stumbled upon the real Mossman, disbelieving that he had been tricked. With one look at the garden, Mossman understood exactly what had happened. Together, the two returned to the palace, now overrun by Evil Seed's monstrous plants. As the vines tightened their grip on the captives, Mossman sprang into action, using his powers to counter the corrupted flora and rescue those ensnared. But just when it seemed the threat had been quelled, Orko unintentionally let slip the name Castle Greyskull. Evil Seed, eyes gleaming with new ambition, wasted no time and made his way toward it. He-Man, now free, joined forces with Mossman to stop Evil Seed before he could reach the source of the universe's greatest secrets. A fierce battle followed, roots clashing with raw strength, vines twisting against sheer willpower. Eventually, the duo managed to overcome the villain, sealing away his threat once more. Grateful for his heroism and wisdom, He-Man and Man-at-Arms offered Mossman a place among the Masters of the Universe. He accepted with quiet humility. As for Orko, he walked away a little wiser, having learned that shortcuts often lead to the longest and most tangled paths of all. Episode 20. Buzzoff's Pride. In the tranquil royal garden, Orko hovered among the plants, his curiosity piqued by their colourful blooms. As he studied a particularly strange vine, Buzzoff zipped by overhead and out of sight. Intrigued, Orko gave chase, eventually catching up to the Andrinid warrior. Buzzoff explained that he was en route to the Andrinos Jubilee, an annual celebration for his people. He was on a personal mission to collect honeyberries from the nearby village of Viridas, a special treat for his queen. The journey took an unexpected turn when, just outside Viridas, a trader attempting to cross a bridge was abruptly turned away by a towering purple giant named Asdar. Buzzoff, not one to let such behaviour go unchallenged, flew in to confront him, but Asdar dismissed him with a powerful swat, sending the insectoid hero crashing to the ground. Before he could recover, two more giants, one red, one green, emerged and joined Asdar. Orko caught up just in time to see Buzzoff struggle to rise and quickly convinced him to retreat. Outnumbered and clearly outmatched, there was no victory to be won here. As the two left, the trio of giants brought the bridge down in a massive display of force. Back at the palace, Prince Adam and Cringer were enjoying a peaceful nap beneath a tree when their rest was interrupted by an angry blast. Buzzoff, venting his frustration on a nearby tree trunk. Adam, startled, asked what had happened, but Buzzoff brushed it off. Orko, about to explain, was silenced with a stern glance. Whatever had happened, Buzzoff wasn't ready to talk about it. Later, a royal messenger arrived with urgent news. The bridge outside Viridas had been destroyed. Buzzoff immediately volunteered to assist. He departed for Viridas alongside Man-at-Arms, Ram-Man, and Prince Adam. As the group neared the village, a sentry atop the wall spotted the same trio of giants approaching. With a shout, the gates were sealed, but the giants weren't deterred. They slammed a massive battering ram into the gate, splintering it just as the defenders arrived. Driven by the need for revenge, Buzzoff didn't wait for a plan. He charged at Asdar, who, recognizing the impulsive Andrianid, lured him away from the village. Ram-Man and Man-at-Arms engaged the remaining giants while Adam stepped aside to transform into He-Man. Buzzoff's pursuit took him deep into the forest, but it ended abruptly when a tree crashed down in his path, tripping him up. As he struggled to rise, Asdar appeared and struck him hard with a hammer, leaving him unconscious. Back in the village, Man-at-Arms and Ram-Man chased the other giants through narrow alleys, only to be caught off guard when a silo full of produce was toppled onto them. That left He-Man alone to guard the village's most precious possession, the Crystal of Precinus, an artifact said to make all produce in the region ripe and flavorful. The giants attacked He-Man with heavy weapons, but he blocked their strikes and hurled them aside. Realizing brute force wouldn't work, the giants toppled a nearby water tower. He-Man caught the tower mid-fall to protect a child below, allowing the giants to seize the crystal and escape. When Buzzoff finally awoke, he returned to the village, battered but determined. After a firm conversation with his fellow masters, he vowed to retrieve the stolen crystal. He tracked the giants to a massive hideout where they were reveling in their victory and plotting to ransom the crystal. Buzzoff demanded its return. The giants attacked, but he darted through the air, narrowly avoiding their strikes. In the chaos, he managed to knock the crystal from the green giant's grasp. Seizing it, he made a swift escape through the fireplace, leaving the stunned giants behind as he flew back toward Viridas, crystal in hand and purpose renewed. Episode 21. Snake Pit. Under the blanket of night on the planet Eternia, a silent intruder crept across the shadows of the royal palace. An unusual, six-legged lizard with a mission. It slithered its way into the dungeon, unnoticed by the palace guards, preoccupied with a game of chess. With practiced ease, it reached a specific cell and slipped a ring of keys to the prisoner inside. From another cell nearby, a small, white, furry creature with glowing yellow eyes watched the exchange with quiet intensity. The prisoner, concealed behind a muzzle, wasted no time. Freed from his shackles, he launched a surprise assault on the distracted guards. One nearly managed to sound the alarm, but it was too late. The attacker vanished into the dark corridors of the palace. When the guards regained control, Man-at-Arms arrived to assess the situation. He quickly identified the escaped prisoner, Cobra Khan, As guards fanned out to track him down, the watching creature in the other cell offered a warning they wouldn't catch him. Beyond the palace walls, Cobra Khan emerged from the sewers, swiftly ambushing a lone guard and stealing his sky sled. With the lizard perched on his shoulder, he sped off into the night, heading towards the ominous silhouette of Snake Mountain. Once near its base, Khan revealed his true goal: to awaken the ancient tyrant King Hiss and restore the reign of the Snake Men. But his intrusion didn't go unnoticed. Merman and Tubad intercepted him and brought him before Skeletor. Far from intimidated, Khan offered his services to Skeletor, proposing a shared vengeance against Eternia. Intrigued by the promise of chaos, Skeletor agreed. Meanwhile, back at Man-at-Arms' workshop, news of Cobra Khan's escape and destination reached Prince Adam, Teela, and Orko. Adam was skeptical. He believed King Hiss to be nothing more than a legend. Man-at-Arms, however, explained the dark truth. King Hiss had once led the Snake Men in a near-total conquest of Eternia. He constructed Snake Mountain as his base of operations until the combined forces of the Elders and a powerful mystic named Zodak sealed him and his army in a timeless void hidden within the mountain. Following the sorceress's advice, Man-at-Arms led Adam and Teela to seek Zodak's aid. They found him meditating in his mountain retreat. Though reserved, Zodak agreed to confront the threat, but alone. Inside Snake Mountain, Cobra Khan was already analysing the structure's weaknesses, presenting tactical plans to Skeletor and his minions. But while they were distracted, he slipped away into the lower chambers, drawn toward the void where King Hiss was sealed. As Man-at-Arms, Teela, and Adam approached Snake Mountain, they spoke of Zodak's painful history. His brother had died at King Hiss's hands. Though Teela worried Zodak couldn't take on Skeletor's forces alone, Man-at-Arms had faith. Zodak's power wasn't brute strength, it was insight. He saw the truth behind every warrior's weakness. Zodak proved his reputation true. He dispatched Triclops effortlessly and entered Skeletor's lair, demanding Cobra Khan. Met with laughter and attacks, Zodak retaliated with overwhelming power. Even Evillin's spell backfired when he redirected it, pinning Skeletor and his warriors to the walls. Free of interference, Zodak ventured deeper into the mountain. Cobra Khan reached a sealed chamber, his destination. As he activated the ancient mechanism using a mystical key, a spider-like figure watched from the shadows. The gateway to the void creaked open, releasing General Rattler, a high-ranking snake man who moved to attack the intruder, Zodak. Cobra Khan joined the fight, spraying acid from his hood. Zodak narrowly avoided disfigurement, but was momentarily overwhelmed and knocked into the structure. Rattler was prepared to deliver him to King Hiss. Just in time, Man-at-Arms and Teela arrived, knocking Rattler away. As the enemy called for reinforcements, Adam slipped away to transform into He-Man. Cobra Khan melted the chamber's entrance, blocking Teela's path. She was left to face the Snake Men alone. Now transformed, He-Man confronted Khan and pursued him through the depths of the mountain. But as he closed in, Skeletor ambushed him and hurled him into the void. Zodak, undeterred, leapt in after him. Inside the pit, He-Man was disarmed and captured. Shadowed by the emerging presence of King Hiss himself, he was dragged toward the Snake King's awakening. But Zodak reappeared, recovered the Sword of Power, and freed He-Man. King Hiss, in his terrifying snake form, ordered his soldiers to attack. On the surface, Teela and Man-at-Arms fought fiercely alongside Zodak and He-Man. Unaware he was overheard, Cobra Khan boasted of King Hiss's rise, within earshot of Skeletor, who realised Khan had ambitions of his own. The alliance between villain and traitor fractured. Realising the chamber couldn't be resealed, He-Man and Zodak combined their strength to destroy its structure. The resulting collapse sucked the Snake Men back into the void, sealing it once more. Cobra Khan and General Rattler escaped through another tunnel, vowing that King Hiss would rise again. Skeletor, infuriated but defeated, disappeared into the mountain. Back at the royal palace, Zodak thanked his newfound allies. Man-at-Arms acknowledged that more threats would come and assured Zodak they'd need his help again. In a time of growing darkness, Zodak had become an ally to the Masters of the Universe. Episode 22. The Island. Man-at-Arms embarks on a perilous journey to Orca's Island, seeking out his former mentor Dekka. The island, situated in the remote ocean of Narl, is infamous for its treacherous terrain and hidden dangers. Obstacles even Duncan himself finds challenging. However, his resolve to reconnect with Dekka drives him forward. Meanwhile, On Orca's island, Decker engages in a quiet conversation with a local fisherman, unaware that their words are being overheard by two Cariconi, creatures resembling giant crabs. One of the Cariconi, Pinsaw, takes the opportunity to send word to his cousin, Clawful, a minion of the sinister Skeletor. Seizing the chance, Skeletor devises a wicked plan to capture Man-at-Arms and force him to craft advanced weaponry for his dark purposes. As Man-at-Arms arrives on the island, accompanied by Prince Adam and Teela, they quickly discover that Decker has vanished. Their search for the missing mentor soon leads them into a carefully laid trap by the Cariconi. The ensuing fight is brutal, and despite their best efforts, Man-at-Arms and Teela are captured, while Adam narrowly escapes. Using his wits and knowledge, Man-at-Arms, aided by Decker, manages to deceive their captors and secure their release. However, the situation remains dire. It isn't long before Adam transforms into He-Man, his mighty alter ego, and returns to the island to join the fray. He charges into battle, his strength overwhelming the Cariconi as he fights to free his comrades. But the battle takes a darker turn when Pinsaw, one of the Cariconi involved in the earlier betrayal, summons a deadly army of Pulmos, massive, venomous creatures resembling jellyfish. In the chaos of the fight, Man-at-Arms is stung by one of the Pulmos, and the poison quickly spreads through his body. As the poison takes hold, Teela remembers her father's teachings and recalls that the antidote lies in the milk of a madronapod, a rare and elusive substance. With time running out, He-Man sets off on a dangerous quest to retrieve the madronapod, navigating the island's perilous landscape in search of this precious remedy. His journey is fraught with its own dangers, but his determination and strength carry him through. After a tense and treacherous quest, He-Man finally locates the madronapod and returns to Man-at-Arms just in time. Administering the antidote, He-Man manages to save his mentor from the brink of death. With the immediate danger over, the group regroups and prepares for whatever challenges Orca's island may still hold. Episode 23. The Sweet Smell of Victory. In a quiet, forgotten corner of Eternia, a small, white, furry creature crept towards the crumbling remains of an old alchemical outpost. With glowing yellow, cat-like eyes and a curious nature, he slipped inside. Speaking in a peculiar third-person manner, he identified himself as Odifus and revealed his purpose: to steal potions hidden within the ancient building. Before he could act, however, a group of Skeletor's notorious henchmen, Merman, Triclops, Whiplash, and Trapjaw, entered. Odifus ducked out of sight, heart pounding, and observed them with awe. As he watched, a longing grew in him. More than anything, he wished to be one of them, to stand among Skeletor's feared evil warriors. Not far away, the Horde had arrived to seize a mysterious purple container. Their plans were quickly interrupted by He-Man. Flanked by Man-at-Arms, Teela, and Robboto, chaos erupted as battle broke out. Amid the clash of weapons and flying debris, Robboto's laser fire inadvertently compromised the structure's foundation. The building began to collapse. The Horde escaped with the container, and He-Man, ever the hero, held up the crumbling ceiling to allow his allies time to flee. Once the dust settled and silence returned, Odifus emerged from the rubble, dazed but determined. Driven by ambition, he made his way to Snake Mountain. There, undeterred by danger, he snuck into Triclops' laboratory. The scientist barely noticed him, dismissing the creature with a sharp command before leaving to attend to Skeletor. Left alone, Odifus approached the bubbling experiment on the work table. His curiosity overwhelmed his caution. One wrong move caused a chemical reaction. The mixture exploded in a burst of smoke and strange energy. When it cleared, Odifus was no longer the small, fluffy creature he had always been. He had grown to human size. His once white fur had turned mostly black, a single skunk-like stripe of white running down his back. But with his transformation came an unbearable stench. So foul, even he couldn't stand it. He fashioned an oxygen mask just to breathe. Excited by his newfound strength, he approached Skeletor, hoping to earn a place among the evil warriors. But the Overlord, unimpressed and disgusted, swiftly refused. Episode 24, Separation. In Skeletor's lair, Too Bad sat down for a meal, but peace was short-lived. As usual, the two heads began bickering, snapping at each other mid-bite, jabbing with their conflicting opinions, and escalating into a full-blown fight. Their ceaseless quarrels caught the attention of Stinkor, who approached with his usual air of curiosity and annoyance. When they explained, yet again, that being physically stuck together was the root of their misery, Stinkor suggested a possible solution. He told them about an old acquaintance named Vormus, a reclusive mage known for his dealings in ancient spells and forgotten magic. At the royal palace, a more cheerful scene unfolded. Man-at-Arms and Queen Marlena were engaged in a friendly board game against Teela and Adam. Robboto and Cyclone looked on, enjoying the playful competition. Laughter echoed through the halls as the younger pair triumphed, prompting cheers and light-hearted teasing. But while the others celebrated, the joy struck a more somber chord in Cyclone. Watching the family's bond stirred memories he had long buried, of kin he had lost, or perhaps never truly known. Quietly, he slipped away from the room, his mood heavy. Robboto followed, sensing his friend's inner turmoil, and reminded him that families can grow and evolve. Moved by the idea, Cyclone resolved to search for others of his kind. Far from the palace, Vormus sat reading when the door to his study burst open. Too Bad stormed in, demanding the spell of separation. Unnerved, Vormus retrieved the ancient tablet containing the spell, but hesitated. Reading the inscription, he changed his mind and refused to hand it over. Furious, Too Bad lunged at him. The scuffle knocked the tablet to the ground, where a jagged piece broke off, revealing an image of Eternia split in half. Without waiting for further explanation, Too Bad snatched the fragment and stormed off, determined to locate the 3 sacred artifacts required to activate the spell. The first, according to legend, lay hidden beneath the ocean. Back at Castle Grayskull, He-Man and Battlecat met with the sorceress. In her solemn voice, she recounted the history of the Triad, 3 relics forged by evil sorcerers at the command of Hordak, the Dark Warlord. The Triad had once split Eternia into light and dark hemispheres, but the destructive force proved too much, even for Hordak. He ceased the spell before the planet was torn apart and scattered the Triad's pieces to remote corners of Eternia. Now, with someone clearly trying to reunite them, the sorceress warned that the balance of the world was at stake. Elsewhere, Cyclone and Robboto journeyed to an island in search of clues about Cyclone's past. The village they found was deserted. Once again, disappointment weighed heavily on Cyclone's shoulders. Robboto tried to comfort him, but Cyclone remained distant, unwilling to voice the full depth of his sorrow. In the dark depths of Subternia, Too Bad secured the second artifact. Before they could flee, He-Man confronted them, demanding they return what they had stolen. A brief scuffle ensued, during which Too Bad blinded He-Man with a smoke bomb and escaped. Flying back to the palace, Robboto questioned Cyclone's pain over a family he had never even known. Cyclone offered no response, keeping his past locked behind silence. Meanwhile, Too Bad's quest was interrupted by a red dragon. The beast attacked, but they threw a gas capsule that subdued it long enough to retrieve the third and final piece. He-Man arrived too late to stop them, but checked on the dragon before continuing the pursuit. Too Bad reached the ritual site in the planet's dark hemisphere and began assembling the Triad. Bad hesitated, feeling the tremors begin, but Two was relentless, knocking Bad unconscious and completing the spell. The ground split beneath them as Eternia began to tear apart once more. As lightning ravaged the skies above the palace, the Masters scrambled to hold the crumbling structure together. A bolt struck, sending debris crashing toward Man-at-Arms and Teela. Just in time, Cyclone intervened, using a whirlwind to deflect the falling stone. He-Man, meanwhile, had returned the first artifact. After Battlecat was injured by a fallen tree, he spotted the red dragon and rode it to the remaining sites, racing to restore the balance. With the Triad returned and the planet stabilizing, peace slowly returned. The palace was rebuilt, stone by stone, and amidst the effort, Cyclone shared a quiet moment with Robboto. He had found his family after all, not by blood, but by bond. At Snake Mountain, however, the cycle repeated. Too Bad, still fused, still frustrated, resumed their endless bickering. Episode 25, The Council of Evil, Part 1. Skeletor's latest defeat of his evil warriors was, on the surface, a crushing blow to his plans. However, it was all part of a carefully orchestrated scheme to lull the defenders of Eternia into a false sense of security. The heroic masters, having captured several of his minions, celebrated their temporary victory, and King Randor, believing the immediate threat neutralized, lifted the state of high alert. The masters, worn from their tireless efforts, were granted a rare respite, but this moment of peace, though hard-earned, was exactly what Skeletor had anticipated. He knew that their guard would drop, and with it, their focus would wane. In this time of complacency, Skeletor wasted no time. With his enemies distracted, he activated his true plan, the formation of a powerful new alliance known as the Council of Evil. This council brought together some of the most dangerous and malevolent forces in the universe. Count Marzo, a master of dark magic; Webstore, the cunning and venomous trapper; Evil Seed, whose power over nature threatened to engulf all; and the formidable giants Asdar, Belzar, and Chadaz. Each of them shared a singular objective: to dismantle the heroic masters and capture them one by one. The campaign began with a direct strike on one of the most trusted heroes, Man-at-Arms. At the unforgiving sands of fire, he confronted Skeletor in battle. Though he fought with unmatched courage, Man-at-Arms was outnumbered and outmatched. His strength was no match for the overwhelming power of the Council's combined forces. Ultimately, he was captured, marking the first of many victories for the Council. Eventually, the Council of Evil's grip tightened. Each of the heroic masters fell one by one, their captures meticulously planned and executed. Word of the abductions reached Orko, who urgently informed Prince Adam of Stratos' capture. Realizing the severity of the situation, Adam knew that the time had come to act. He entrusted Teela with the defense of the palace dungeons, ensuring that the remaining masters were protected. Then, in a moment of determination, he transformed into He-Man, the powerful alter ego he had long kept hidden, and prepared to confront the growing threat. Meanwhile, back at Snake Mountain, Skeletor sat at the head of the newly formed council, their plans unfolding just as he had hoped. He expressed an air of confidence, knowing that He-Man would soon take the bait. Skeletor had anticipated every move. He knew the hero would stop at nothing to rescue his comrades. It was this very pursuit that would play directly into his hands. Skeletor's confidence grew as the council discussed their next steps. Their objective was clear: to capture He-Man himself, the one force standing in the way of their complete dominion over Eternia. The trap was set. As He-Man, along with Battle-Cat by his side, approached Snake Mountain, they were unaware of the deadly ambush lying in wait for them. Skeletor's plan had moved into its final stage, and the battle for Eternia was about to escalate to unprecedented heights. Episode 26, The Council of Evil, Part 2. In the wake of Skeletor's meticulously crafted plan, the heroic masters found themselves imprisoned, their once unshakable unity shattered. With their forces scattered, it was left to He-Man alone to confront the newly formed Council of Evil. However, the Council proved to be a more formidable threat than anticipated. The combined power of Count Marzo's dark magic and Evil Seed's corrupting plants overwhelmed He-Man, leaving him unable to defend himself. Despite their victory, the Council remained unaware of a silent observer, Cobra Khan, who watched from the shadows, biding his time. Meanwhile, in the depths of their prison, Man-at-Arms and Robbotos managed to establish a fragile communication link with Teela at the palace. Their message was urgent, and Teela acted swiftly, arriving in the Dark Hemisphere just as He-Man, in his Prince Adam form, freed himself from his restraints. Though Adam was no longer He-Man, he retained the courage to fight, even without his powers. Skeletor, reveling in his moment of triumph, dispatched Count Marzo to retrieve the Ramstone from the Faceless One, a potent artifact with the ability to breach even the strongest magical defenses. In his weakened state, Prince Adam found himself powerless, separated from the source of his strength, his sword. Though he attempted to infiltrate Snake Mountain and confront the evil forces head-on, his efforts were in vain. As he tried to reveal his secret identity to Teela, fate intervened in the form of Webstore, who kidnapped her and dropped the power sword into a seemingly endless abyss. Left alone, Adam was left for dead, his spirit faltering under the weight of his predicament. The theft of the Ramstone by Marzo marked a turning point, as Skeletor and the Council made their way to Castle Grayskull with their eyes set on its immense power. Yet, the evil warriors were not idle. Cobra Khan and Ratlaw freed the imprisoned villains from the palace dungeons, bolstering Skeletor's forces. Armed with the Ram Stone and Marzo's amulet, Skeletor breached Grayskull's defences, shattering its magical wards and incapacitating the sorceress. The fortress that had once been a symbol of hope and strength now lay vulnerable. Cringer, ever loyal, returned Prince Adam to Grayskull, urging him to defend the sacred grounds as best as he could. Adam, though stripped of his powers, was not one to surrender easily. Surrounded by the combined forces of Skeletor and the Council, he stood at the precipice of defeat. It was in this dire moment, as hope seemed all but lost, that Adam spotted something on the horizon, vehicles approaching in the distance. At first, he thought the Masters had arrived in the nick of time to save the day, but as the dust cleared, a bitter realization set in. It wasn't the Masters charging to their aid. Instead, the evil warriors had joined forces, reinforcing Skeletor's ranks. Overwhelmed and outnumbered, Prince Adam found himself in an impossible situation. The might of the Council of Evil and the return of the evil warriors left him with little hope. The struggle for Castle Grayskull was no longer just a battle of strength. It was a fight for survival, one that would test Adam's resolve in ways he had never imagined. My, what a cliffhanger to end the season on. Season 2, 2003 to 2004, Episode 27, The Last Stand. The cliffhanger of the last season was a big one indeed. Now, at the Council of Evil, Skeletor proudly announces that he has already captured the Masters for them. He reveals that he returned the amulet to Count Marzo, freed Evil Seed, and assembled the rest of the Council. Meanwhile, in a prison cell, the captured Masters notice a small patch of grass sprouting on the floor, an unexpected sign of hope. Elsewhere, Prince Adam manages to seize Skeletor's Havoc Staff, but Skeletor, using his mental powers, heats it up, forcing Adam to drop it. Skeletor then blasts Adam off a cliff, injuring Cringer in the process. At the same time, the sorceress is still falling through the sky until she's rescued mid-air by Zodak, who swiftly constructs a protective force field around Castle Grayskull. In the aftermath of the cliff attack, Orko revives Adam with a conjured rain shower and returns his power sword. Adam transforms into He-Man and reappears on the cliffside to confront Skeletor. In the battle that follows, He-Man overpowers Asdar and his two towering companions, as well as several of the other warriors. He destroys the enemy vehicles used by Evil Seed, Webstore, and the others, effectively turning the tide. Count Marzo, impressed by Evelyn's capabilities, teams up with her and combines their magic with Skeletor's to launch a devastating blast. Their combined power hurls He-Man into the force field surrounding Castle Grayskull. At that critical moment, Mossman arrives, using his powers to disrupt the enemy. He appears alongside the now freed Masters, ready for battle. Together, they clash with the forces of evil. During the fight, He-Man shatters the Ramstone, weakening their enemies. Stratos swoops in to seize Count Marzo's amulet. With their forces broken, Asdar and his companions flee, while the remaining villains retreat. Zodak and the Sorceress then harness the ancient magic of the Elders to revert Count Marzo to the aged form he had when the Elders first imprisoned him. Stripped of power, Marzo escapes in humiliation. Webstore chooses to remain loyal to Skeletor, and the two flee on a griffin. After the battle, Man-at-Arms debriefs King Randor and Queen Marlena, who had been away during the conflict. He explains that the Masters had been captured but were rescued thanks to Mossman, who had been contacted by Zodak. Blaming himself for the incident, Man-at-Arms offers to resign, but King Randor refuses to accept it. Instead, he encourages Man-at-Arms to form a new council, a gesture Man-at-Arms accepts. Back at Snake Mountain, Skeletor fumes over their defeat, but remains determined, already devising a new plan to conquer Castle Grayskull. Meanwhile, in the Eternian prison, Stratos and the others uncover the truth. It was Cobra Khan who freed the evil warriors. They begin to suspect that he and General Rattler are plotting another attempt to liberate King Hiss and the Snake Men. Within the dark corridors of Snake Mountain, Evil Lyn and Cobra Khan speak privately. Khan reveals that Skeletor has been deceiving them, showing them proof of his betrayal. Convinced, Evil Lyn agrees to secretly aid Cobra Khan in his quest to free King Hiss and the Snake Men, setting the stage for yet another looming threat to Eternia. Episode 28, To Walk with Dragons. With a cunning bid to sabotage an upcoming international council called by King Randor, an alliance meant to unite the realms against rising evil, Skeletor sets a sinister plan into motion. Aware that the Evergreen Forest's guardian dragons are a formidable natural defense, he orchestrates their removal, using dark magic and fear to drive the majestic creatures from their ancient homeland. With the skies cleared of their protectors, Skeletor unleashes his latest invention, a battalion of mechanical serpents known as Serpenators, engineered at Snake Mountain to mimic the agility and terror of real dragons. Back at the Royal Palace, the heroic masters, Prince Adam, He-Man, Man-at-Arms, Orko, Mechaneck, and Man-E-Faces observe the sudden, unexplained exodus of the dragons. Concerned, they consult Stratos, who confirms a disturbing buildup of mechanical forces near Snake Mountain. The pieces fall into place. Skeletor is using the dragon's absence to pave the way for his invasion. Initially, Prince Adam proposes countering the threat with mechanical dragons of their own, hoping to meet Skeletor's machines in kind. But Man-at-Arms quickly points out the impracticality of creating such complex constructs in time. Faced with few options, the team pivots to a more desperate, yet hopeful, solution, finding the dragons and convincing them to return to their homeland. Their search leads them across the reaches of Eternia, through windswept cliffs and shadowy glades, until they finally encounter the displaced dragons. It takes a blend of courage, empathy, and deep respect for the dragons' role in the land to persuade them to return. The climax erupts in a thunderous battle at the edge of the Evergreen Forest. The heroic masters fight alongside the returned dragons against the serpentine machines. Fire and steel clash in the skies, as unity proves stronger than Skeletor's mechanical might. In the end, the Serpenators are destroyed, the forest is safeguarded once more, and Skeletor's scheme is foiled. The episode closes on a note of renewed faith in alliances between humans, creatures, and kingdoms, reminding Eternia that courage and cooperation remain its greatest strengths. Episode 29, Out of the Past. As He-Man and Skeletor clash in a fierce battle, Teela and Cyclone are busy escorting the Kulatak caravan to the Royal Palace. Once the caravan is safely delivered, Teela instructs Cyclone to return without her. She sets off alone on her sky sled, needing time to clear her thoughts. Mid-flight, a sudden vision overtakes her, a fragmented glimpse of the past and a quiet village nestled among the cliffs. Disoriented by the vision, she loses control and crashes into a rock formation, falling unconscious. She is discovered by the locals and brought to safety in the village of Pelazia, home to the small, peace-loving Pelesians, Odysseus's people. While she recovers, she's introduced to the village shaman, who seems to know more than he lets on. Far away at Snake Mountain, Skeletor unveils his latest creation to Beastman, Trapjaw, Triclops, and Evil Lyn, a new breed of skeleton warriors, forged stronger by being dipped in enchanted wet clay. As he debates which settlement to target to test their power, Stinkor appears with a personal suggestion: his former village, Pelazia. Back in Pelazia, the shaman leads Teela to the Wall of Remembrance, a cliffside carving that chronicles the village's history. One particular image catches her attention, a carving of a young girl who looks remarkably like herself. At Castle Greyskull, the sorceress summons Man-at-Arms. She reveals a long-buried chapter from her past, dating to a time before Skeletor's rise. During a brief departure from her sacred duties, she had journeyed in disguise to Pelazia. Welcomed by the villagers, she found peace for the first time in years. But the peace was short-lived. Word of the village's hidden weapons reached a ruthless warlord named Pravus, betrayed by none other than Odysseus. The village attempted to defend itself, but it was the sorceress who intervened, single-handedly defeating Pravus and his forces. Though victorious, the betrayal had consequences. Odysseus was exiled, his punishment never openly spoken of. To honor the mysterious woman who had saved them, the villagers carved her likeness into the cliffside wall. Later, when Pravus aligned with other warlords, the conflict escalated into a brutal event known as the Great Unrest. Amid the chaos, a wounded and amnesiac warrior stumbled into Pelosia. The sorceress healed him, and once recovered, he returned to the battlefield. Not long after, the elders summoned her back to Castle Grayskull. When she left, she carried with her a baby, the very child who would become Tila, raised under the protection of Man-at-Arms. Following the sorceress's tale, Man-at-Arms sets out to find Tila, bringing Prince Adam along. In Pelosia, Tila, now recovered, notices that the batteries from her Wind Raider have gone missing. She finds them in the possession of the shaman, who confesses he hoped she would choose to stay. Before the conversation can go further, Skeletor launches an attack, deploying his clay-coated skeleton warriors. Tila fends them off as best she can, but is soon overwhelmed. Reinforcements arrive in the form of Man-at-Arms and Prince Adam. Adam slips away, transforming into He-Man to join the fight. The warriors prove nearly invincible, reconstituting themselves even after severe blows. But during the struggle, the heroes discover the creatures have a weakness: fire. Exposing them to heat causes their clay armor to crack and shatter. They lead the creatures away from the village and systematically burn and break them until none remain. With the threat eliminated, the grateful Pelosians thank He-Man, Tila, and Man-at-Arms for their bravery. As the village settles, Man-at-Arms lingers at the Wall of Remembrance. The sorceress reaches out to him once more, sharing the final part of her story, the moment she returned to Grayskull with the infant Tila in her arms, entrusting her to him as protector and father. Episode 30, Rise of the Snake Men, Part 1. Evil Lyn, along with Rattlor and Cobra Khan, launches a daring raid and steals Zodak's powerful staff. In response, He-Man dons new serpent-themed armor, forged specifically to combat the growing snake threat. But as tensions rise, Evil Lyn makes a fateful choice, turning her back on Skeletor to aid Rattlor and Cobra Khan in a dangerous mission. Together, they break the ancient seals and free King Hiss and the rest of the Snake Men from their prison in the void. Their return unleashes chaos. Wasting no time, the Snake Men seize control, turning Skeletor's evil warriors into stone statues, cold and lifeless. With brute force and ancient magic, they summon a colossal serpent, a monstrous being of scale and fang, to devour Skeletor himself. Their domination culminates in the reclamation of Snake Mountain, which begins to twist and transform, its jagged peak sprouting 2 additional snake heads, a terrifying symbol of the Snake Men's rule. The balance of power shifts dramatically as old alliances crumble and a new serpentine reign begins. The heroes and villains of Eternia alike must now contend with the rise of an older, more primal evil. The age of the Snake Men has begun. Episode 31, Rise of the Snake Men, Part 2. King Hiss, seeking to reward Evil Lyn for her assistance, decides to consume her as a mark of honor. However, after delving into her mind in search of secrets about Castle Grayskull, he changes his mind and spares her life. With their alliance intact, Evil Lyn and the Snake Men launch an assault on Grayskull. Despite their combined power, the castle's defenses hold strong as He-Man and the Masters fight back, forcing the invaders to retreat temporarily, of course. Regrouping, the Snake Men breach the castle walls in a renewed offensive. During the chaos, Hiss manages to poison the sorceress, significantly weakening her magical strength. As the battle rages on, He-Man turns Snakeface to stone and knocks Rattlor unconscious, helping to tilt the tide in the Master's favour. The turning point comes when Zodak confronts Hiss directly. After a fierce clash, he overpowers the Serpent King and hurls him into the moat surrounding Castle Grayskull. The remaining Snake Men follow, defeated and scattered. With the immediate threat ended, He-Man rushes the ailing sorceress to the Elders, who successfully purge the venom from her system. As peace momentarily settles over Grayskull, chaos brews elsewhere. At Snake Mountain, the structure's 2 extra heads crumble to rubble, marking the unravelling of whatever power had taken root there. From the ruins, Skeletor erupts in fury. Blasting his way out from beneath the fortress floor, he revives his evil warriors and swears vengeance, not on He-Man, but on Evil Lyn, who had dared to betray him. Episode 32, The Price of Deceit. Near the crumbling ruins of Zalesia, Skeletor captured Evil Lyn and resolved to offer her as a sacrifice to the Pool of Shadows. Isolated and desperate, she turned to the one person who might still care, her father, the mysterious Faceless One. Moved by her plea, he sent He-Man to intervene. As the dark magic of the Forsaken Realm closed in, Evil Lyn tried to reason with Skeletor, reminding him of their long history, how she had once stood by him when he was still Keldor, and even dared to summon Hordak to save his life, but her words fell on deaf ears. Skeletor, consumed by power and paranoia, refused to show mercy. He-Man arrived just in time, battling through the nightmarish forces of the realm to rescue her. Though briefly free, Evil Lyn's gratitude was complicated. She turned on He-Man, lashing out with magic, and returned to Skeletor's side. She helped him to his feet and handed back his Havoc Staff, pledging her loyalty once more. Skeletor accepted her return, but not without conditions. With a warning in his eyes, he allowed her back into his ranks, on the promise that she would never betray him again. The shadows of Zalesia watched silently as they vanished into the darkness.
Skeletor or Owl, you'll do nothing!
Episode 33 of Machines and Men. A mysterious force sweeps across Eternia, abruptly disabling all forms of technology and throwing the kingdom into turmoil. As machines fall silent and devices lose power, the people find themselves grappling with a world that no longer runs on the systems they've come to depend on. Amid the growing unrest, King Randor sets out on a dangerous mission to rescue Queen Marlena, who has been stranded by the sudden blackout. Without their usual tools and weapons, the heroes are forced to rely on their wits, courage, and teamwork. Navigating the unfamiliar terrain of a world stripped of its technological comforts, they face physical and emotional challenges that test their limits. The journey becomes more than a rescue. It becomes a lesson in perseverance. By the episode's end, peace is tentatively restored, but the experience leaves a lasting impression. The story closes with a thoughtful reminder. While technology can make life easier, it is not the source of our true strength. In the face of crisis, it's our resilience, creativity, and ability to adapt that carry us through. Episode 34, Second Skin. The episode opens with the arrival of Lord Dacty's at the Royal Palace, bearing troubling news. King Hiss, the feared and once thought defeated leader of the Snake Men, has survived. His return signals a new wave of danger for Eternia. Alarmed by this revelation, Prince Adam, alongside the ever-curious Orko, turns to the sorceress at Castle Grayskull for guidance. Unfortunately, Zodak, one of their most powerful allies, is unreachable, locked in deep meditation and unable to assist. The sorceress, sensing a disturbance in the balance, points them toward the Sea of Rakash, suggesting that events unfolding there could be key to understanding King Hiss's next move. Heeding her advice, He-Man forms a team and heads to the Sea of Rakash with Man-at-Arms, Teela, and Mechanic. The journey reveals a grim truth. The Snake Men are searching for a powerful relic known as the Serpent's Ring. This ancient artifact holds the ability to transform ordinary beings into Snake Men, an asset that would tip the scales dangerously in King Hiss's favour. Despite their best efforts, the heroes are unable to prevent King Hiss from seizing the ring. The artifact's magic proves immediately potent. In a flash of green energy and hissing incantation, Man-at-Arms, Teela, and Mechanic are transformed into serpent-like versions of themselves, twisted in appearance and loyal to Hiss's will. Back at the palace, Orko and Robboto take a different approach. With Ratlaw and Snakeface, two captured Snake Men in custody, they begin an interrogation to uncover how to reverse the transformations. Orko, true to form, uses an unorthodox yet surprisingly effective method, conjuring a giant mongoose to terrify the prisoners. The tactic works. Ratlaw, clearly unnerved, reveals a crucial piece of information. The Serpent's Ring cannot be destroyed by any known means on Eternia. Meanwhile, the transformed allies, now under King Hiss's control, return to confront He-Man. The ensuing battle is fierce. Snake-at-Arms fights with a deadly precision and strength that pushes He-Man to his limits. Teela and Mechanic, equally formidable in their transformed states, force He-Man into a desperate struggle to save not only himself, but his friends. Thanks to the intel retrieved by Orko and Robboto, He-Man learns that while the ring itself is indestructible, its magic can be undone. Drawing upon his unwavering resolve and the bonds he shares with his friends, He-Man manages to reverse the transformations and bring Man-at-Arms, Teela and Mechanic back to their true selves.
I have the power!
Episode 35. The Power of Grayskull. At the palace, Prince Adam awoke with a start, the remnants of a strange and vivid dream still lingering in his mind. He had seen terrifying visions of Hordak, the Snake Men, and a powerful warrior who bore an uncanny resemblance to He-Man. Troubled by the dream's intensity, Adam made his way to Castle Grayskull, seeking answers from the sorceress. Far from there, at Snake Mountain, a different drama was unfolding. Hordak, imprisoned in the dark dimension of Despondos, issued a command to Skeletor. In exchange for saving Skeletor's life long ago, Hordak demanded that he now repay the debt by freeing him from Despondos. Skeletor, bound by this unspoken oath, prepared to journey to the sanctuary where Hordak had once reigned. At Castle Grayskull, the sorceress shared with Adam the truth behind his dream. The warrior he had seen was none other than King Grayskull, the legendary ruler of Eternia and original master of Castle Grayskull. He had been a noble and valiant leader, once married to Vina, the first sorceress. In his time, King Grayskull had fought bravely against the Snake Men, but had lost his sword in the process. As a greater threat loomed, Hordak's ambition to conquer all of Eternia, he sought a way to gain the strength he needed for the final battle. It was Vina who guided Grayskull to the Oracle of Zalesia, a strange and ancient being known for its cryptic wisdom. The Oracle sent him on a grueling quest designed to test his courage, wisdom, kindness, and strength. Through each challenge, Grayskull proved his worth. At last, he reached the summit of Mount Imperium, only to find the Oracle already waiting for him. With solemn reverence, the Oracle returned Grayskull's lost sword and told him what he had always suspected. The true source of his power had been within him all along. Yet the revelation came with a grim prophecy. Grayskull would not survive the coming battle. Accepting his fate with unwavering resolve, he returned to Eternia to face Hordak one final time. Hordak's armies advanced upon Castle Grayskull, but King Grayskull met them head-on. His giant feline mount tore through enemy soldiers, and Grayskull himself defeated Hordak's generals with ease. When the two titans finally confronted one another, Hordak unleashed his full power, knocking Grayskull back and ordering his sorcerers to open a portal to Despondos to banish him forever. But Grayskull summoned his inner strength, declaring his power and drawing from it to protect Castle Grayskull. With a mighty command, he reversed the spell using the Sword of Power, turning the portal against Hordak and his forces. One by one, they were pulled into Despondos. Though Hordak's physical form was destroyed, his spectral essence escaped, phasing through King Grayskull as he fled into exile, vowing one day to return. Victory, however, came at a terrible cost. Grayskull had sustained a mortal wound. Knowing his time was near, he entrusted his power to his allies, who would become the Council of Elders, and left his sword in Vina's care. She would safeguard it until a worthy champion arose, one who would need it to fight evil once more. Surrounded by those who loved him, King Grayskull passed away, his spirit forever bound to the Sword of Power. Having learned this history, Adam transformed into He-Man and raced to stop Skeletor. But instead of fulfilling Hordak's wishes, Skeletor made a different choice. He destroyed the sanctuary that could have set Hordak free, severing his ancient bond with the Dark Warlord. From a distance, Evil Lyn watched, as did He-Man, both silently questioning why Skeletor had chosen this path. Episode 36. Web of Evil. In the shadowed depths of the Mystic Mountains, Webstor strikes the unguarded hive of the Andronids. The usually vigilant insectoid warriors are away, leaving their honeycomb vulnerable. Webstor gorges himself on the hive's sacred ambrosia, but the feast proves too potent. His body begins to twist and mutate, growing more monstrous with each passing moment. Elsewhere, the heroic warriors are leading an evacuation from nearby mines, intent on preventing the snake men, ever hungry and always hunting, from claiming the workers as prey. The reptilian predators eventually retreat, leaving the miners unharmed. He-Man and his allies head to a local tavern to dissuade the miners from returning underground too soon. There, tensions erupt when Man-at-Arms encounters Fisto. He labels him a deserter from the Great Unrest, though he offers no further explanation. The confrontation ends unresolved, heavy with unspoken history. Back in the mountains, Teela receives an emergency signal from the Andreenid hive. She dispatches Buzzoff and Stratos to investigate. Upon arrival, they discover the hive wrapped in dense webs, its residents ensnared. A lone Andreenid recounts Webstor's attack, but the true horror emerges when Buzzoff and Stratos realize Webstor's mutation has given him the ability to lay hundreds of eggs. Before they can react further, they are ambushed. Webstor, now a grotesque spider-like creature, intends for his brood to feed on the trapped Andrenids. Reinforcements arrive just in time. He-Man and the others battle fiercely, but are ultimately caught in a rock slide, sealed in a crevice beneath the battlefield. Salvation arrives in the form of Fisto, who smashes through the stone with his massive fist. The effort leaves him unconscious and injured. In the aftermath, Duncan quietly reveals a buried truth. Fisto is his brother. When the heroes return to the hive, they are met with devastation. The snake men have tunneled in from below and feasted on the spiderlings and their ambrosia-rich eggs. Empowered by their gruesome meal, the snake men now pose an even greater threat, stronger, faster, and more dangerous than ever before. Episode 37, Rattle of the Snake. Tensions run high beneath the surface of Eternia, Subternia, where two ancient subterranean races, the bat-like Spellians and the reptilian Caligars, teeter on the brink of war. The fragile peace shatters when Serratus, leader of the Caligars, accuses the Spellians of abducting 9 of his warriors. With the threat of full-scale conflict looming, King Randor dispatches a team to investigate. Man-at-Arms, accompanied by Prince Adam, Teela, and the mighty Fisto. What begins as a diplomatic mission quickly reveals deeper, darker forces at play. The missing Caligars have not fallen into the hands of the Spellians at all. Instead, they've been enslaved by the long-dormant Snake Men, led by the ruthless King Hiss. Hidden away in the depths of Subternia, the Snake Men are forcing their captives to operate a colossal drill, unearthing the long-buried Temple of Serpos, the sacred domain of their ancient deity. King Hiss's ambitions extend far beyond mere excavation. With plans to awaken Serpos itself, a monstrous god of unimaginable power, he seeks to reclaim dominance over Eternia. Central to his scheme is the Medallion of Serpos, a potent artifact capable of summoning the serpent god from its slumber. Back in the royal palace, chaos brews on another front. Rattlor, a cunning Snake Man operative, deceives Robboto and escapes from captivity, further complicating the hero's efforts and signalling that the threat is far from contained. The climax erupts at the exposed Temple of Serpos. In a desperate battle, He-Man confronts King Hiss in an attempt to halt the awakening, but despite his efforts, Hiss escapes with the medallion in hand, his plan now dangerously close to fruition. In the aftermath of the confrontation, something remarkable happens. The Spellians and Caligars, once poised for war, come to see the truth. They were pawns in a greater conflict, their feud manipulated by an external threat. With this understanding, they lay down their arms and begin the long road to reconciliation. Though the immediate danger has passed, the escape of King Hiss and the awakening of Serpos still looming leaves Eternia facing a new and ominous chapter. Episode 38, History. The Snake Men were preparing for a long-awaited ritual to awaken Serpos, their ancient serpent god. As this dark plan unfolded, Prince Adam and Fisto, in pursuit of the traitorous Cobra Khan, made their way across the land. Khan had been sent to the surface as punishment by General Rattlor, and now he was on the run, carrying secrets that could prove dangerous. Meanwhile, Count Marzo, still trapped in the frail form of a dwarf, found himself fleeing from a group of relentless barbarians. In his desperate flight, he crossed paths with Evil Lyn, the powerful sorceress who saw an opportunity. With a wave of her hand, she transformed him back into his true, full form. However, this transformation came with a condition. Marzo would aid her in freeing Hordak from the Well of Darkness, but only if she allowed him to keep his amulet. Cobra Khan, lurking nearby, overheard the conversation and rushed to report his findings to King Hiss. The revelation of the potential return of Hordak from Despondos stirred a sense of urgency in the Snake King. King Hiss, determined to stop Evil Lyn and Marzo, gathered his forces. He, along with Ratlaw and a few soldiers, left the remaining snake men behind to track down their enemies, heading toward the Well of Darkness. As the dark forces gathered, Mossman arrived on the scene to offer his help. With his aid, Prince Adam transformed into He-Man and followed King Hiss, prepared to stop the awakening of Hordak. Meanwhile, Evil Lyn and Count Marzo were deep in their dark ritual, their incantations growing more powerful by the minute. But King Hiss, determined to stop them, led his forces along the perilous river of fire, intent on thwarting their plans. The battle reached a turning point when He-Man and Battlecat, with their unmatched strength and speed, caught up to King Hiss and his men. In a fierce confrontation, they hurled their enemies into the raging river of fire, seemingly ending the threat they posed. With King Hiss and Ratlaw seemingly destroyed, the path to the Well of Darkness remained open. The sorceress urgently called He-Man to the well to prevent Hordak's return, knowing that the battle was far from over. Evil Lyn and Count Marzo, however, were on the verge of completing their spell. Just as Hordak's presence began to materialize in their realm, He-Man intervened, using all his strength to stop the Dark Sorcerers and prevent the terrible being from returning. But Evil Lyn, with a flare of fury, ordered Count Marzo to continue the spell, not knowing that Marzo had secretly reclaimed his amulet. In a moment of defiance, Marzo severed his alliance with Evil Lyn, leaving her powerless. The battle ended with the Masters victorious, capturing most of King Hiss's soldiers and destroying their hidden lair. Though He-Man had prevented Hordak's return, the victory was bittersweet. As He-Man made his way home, the true extent of the Snake Men's plot became clear. King Hiss and Ratlaw, having survived their fiery plunge, watched from the shadows, their glee evident. As they peeled away their burned skin, they reveled in the knowledge that nothing could stop the impending rise of Serpos. Their plans were far from over. Episode 39, Awaken the Serpent. The ultimate act of chaos is finally done. King Hiss uses the Medallion of Serpos to awaken the ancient serpent god, Serpos. In a terrifying display, Snake Mountain itself transforms into a living incarnation of the deity. Now imbued with malevolent life, the mountain serpent begins a relentless march across Eternia, leaving destruction in its wake. Its ultimate target, Castle Grayskull, and the untold power it safeguards. He-Man rises to confront the threat head-on. Despite his strength and courage, the sheer might of Serpos proves overwhelming. He is struck down in battle, and the blow reverts him back into his mortal form, Prince Adam. With Eternia hanging in the balance, the sorceress senses the dire turn of events and calls upon a powerful but distant ally, Zodak. Known for his deep-rooted enmity against the Snake Men, Zodak answers the call without hesitation. Tracking Adam's unconscious form, Zodak reveals his long-held knowledge of Adam's secret identity. He aids the prince in reclaiming the power of He-Man, and together they form a plan. Zodak vows to stop King Hiss, while He-Man prepares to face Serpos once more. Back at the royal palace, the chaos has spread. The Snake Men have seized key defenders of Eternia, King Randor, Man-at-Arms, Teela, Fisto, and Ram-Man. But even in captivity, their resolve remains unbroken. Through ingenuity and unity, they turn the tide on their captors, breaking free and rallying to rejoin the larger battle unfolding beyond the palace walls. As the climactic confrontation intensifies, He-Man engages Serpos in a renewed struggle, while Zodak brings his vendetta to bear against King Hiss. Their efforts, driven by sacrifice and conviction, ultimately prevail. Serpos falls, its colossal form crumbling, and King Hiss is presumed destroyed in the chaos. The The Snake Men, now leaderless and broken, retreat into the shadows. With peace returning to Eternia, King Randor honors the courage and resilience of those who fought to protect their world. He-Man, steadfast as ever, accepts the gratitude of his people, while Zodak, ever the solitary warrior, departs once more into the unknown. The episode closes not with celebration, but reflection. The heroes stand amidst the ruins, contemplating the high cost of victory and the uncertain challenges still to come. Though Serpos is gone, the scars of its rampage remain, and so does the quiet understanding that evil, though defeated today, may rise again. But no matter what, the Masters of the Universe would also rise time and again to confront such evil. As we wrap up this series, you've probably noticed it has its own unique power, one that resonates with fans who see it as more than just a reboot, but as a thoughtful evolution of a cherished franchise. Even though it didn't have the same lasting success as the original, the 2002 He-Man and the Masters of the Universe reboot found a special spot in the hearts of both fans and critics. This reboot really stood out, not just because of its visual upgrade from Mike Young Productions, but also due to its dedication to building a rich world. Eternia really came alive, didn't it? This version really made the most of its airtime in a positive way. Fans of the original show really loved it for its improved animation, better narrative, and richer stories. The series made a daring move away from the playful vibe of the 80s version and embraced a more serious, action-filled approach. Critics pointed out how the show really worked to flesh out its characters, particularly Prince Adam and Skeletor. This added a lot more emotional depth and complexity to the ongoing struggle between good and evil. These days, people often view the 2002 series as a link between the classic and the modern. It really set the stage for future reimaginings, like Netflix's Masters of the Universe, Revelation and He-Man, and the Masters of the Universe 2021. If you are a He-Man fan and appreciate our efforts in bringing you this content, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more.